Lord Shiva's position is described in Brahma Samhita. Does anybody happen to know that verse off the top of their head? The Brahma
Which one?
Shiran Dahi. Shiran Yatadihi Vikara Visesha Yogat Sanjaya. Thank you. So that's explaining, okay, now interestingly enough, right? Here's Lord Brahma speaking, and Prabhupada's quoting Lord Brahma's description in the purport of his description of Lord Shiva, how we can understand the position of Lord Shiva, because of his wonderful character. It's a little, if we're looking just on the external, it's a little hard to figure out who Lord Shiva's exalted position. So in this verse by Lord Brahma, who, after 100 of Lord Brahma's years, not 100 of our little short, minuscule years, 100 of Lord Brahma's years of meditation, that's when he composed this Brahma Samhita, which gave such clarity and such information about the spiritual world, about the situation of the Lord and the different universes, etc. And then, so he's talking about the position of Lord Shiva. I'll get into that in a minute. But then later on, do you remember that? Are you familiar with the verse in the 10th canto when Lord Brahma, okay. Here he is offering these exalted prayers in the Brahma Samhita, fully realizing or more fully realizing the position of the Lord and the living entities and the difference between them and the Lord's potencies, etc., etc. And then when he's observing Krishna, who had manifested on the earthly planet and as the son of Nanda Maharaj, when he was observing his pastimes, he thought, who's that little boy? How can that little boy who's eating prasadam with his left hand, isn't that like Hare Krishna 101, you eat with your right hand, For those of us from low backgrounds, we had to learn that too, so you can see how we had to climb up the ladder, learn what Suchi was, what's Muchi, etc., etc. Anyway, Lord Brahma, he's looking down at Krishna's pastimes and he's seeing he's eating his Krishna surprise, his yogurt and rice mixture with fruit in it, and he's got it in his left hand. Not only that, but you know what else he's doing? Different people are taking food off of his plate and they're eating it, and then they're giving food from their plate and they're giving it to Krishna, which is Hare Krishna 101. Also, you don't eat so many things. And people are declaring that young boy who doesn't even have any shoes is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then he decides, you're familiar with this, but anyway, then he decides he wants to test, is it really the Lord? So he tries to test his power, steals the cows and the coward boys, and Krishna just, no problem, he just manifests some more cows and coward boys. After that, so after the end of that situation, so this same Lord Brahma, who's previously spoken the Brahma Samhita, now he says, let anyone say that they know Krishna, but all I can say is, I don't know anything about him. That same Lord Brahma gets that realization that Krishna's potencies are so immeasurable and so beyond our ability to understand that we need to pray to that Supreme Lord to even get the blessings to understand him. So, it's not thinking in those terms, it's not, quote unquote, so surprising that Daksha had that illusion. He was illusioned in a similar but different way. He was illusioned, not realizing the exalted person, the position of Lord Shiva, who is there now his son-in-law in a subordinate position. He wasn't appreciating, seeing, or respecting his position. And why was that? Because of his self-absorption in his own importance. Now, Daksha was a very exalted personality. He is a very exalted personality. He was at the time very exalted, and he was very powerful, and he had a big job description and and he was executing it very nicely. So he was, you know, also exalted, but he was absorbed in his own self-importance. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know that that's my position also. I'm looking out through my little eyeballs, and I'm seeing everything in relation to me. That's on bad days. Hopefully on better days, I can try to see things a little bit more in relation with the Supreme Lord, and things are happening by his divine arrangement and by his divine mercy. But we can see the difficulty, we can see, and again, sitting here in this nicely heated temple room, even though it's freezing cold outside, and even though we know that prasadam is going to come in a few minutes, when this person stops talking, there'll be prasadam and everything will be fine, and I have a warm jacket, etc., and I have a place to stay, and everything's fine. We forget that everything's being controlled by the Supreme Lord, and by his mercy only we're able to even lift our fingers, because that happens. It happens. Those abilities get taken away from us also. So we get absorbed in our own little world, and have the tendency to forget our position as a servant of the Lord, and see everything that's happening to us in relation to the Lord. We forget that. And very mercifully, Srila Prabhupada's given us this wonderful program, morning program, if you're able to attend it, and when you can attend it, and etc., to see the beautiful form of the Lord right first thing in the morning, to sing their glories, to chant their holy names, and then to hear from Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Perfect, transcendental scripture that just by hearing the Bhāgavatam, just by hearing the verses of the Bhāgavatam, the cleansing effect is there on the heart. That's amazing. Just by hearing. In fact, that's our means of conquest of Śrimad Bhāgavatam. So that, in our English language, that conquest word seems a little, Kshatriya-like, that we're not gonna conquer the Bhāgavatam by our intellectual ability or by our our endeavor, but we're going to make our endeavor to what? Hear. And that's how we conquer the Bhāgavatam. Get the import of the Bhāgavatam into our consciousness and our heart, into our daily life, just by hearing. Now, those of you who are way more intellectually equipped than myself, which is probably every single one of you, have the ability, to memorize the verses and know the quotes from here and know the stories from there and quote what's in the 5th canto and quote, what I mean. But it doesn't matter where your intellectual abilities at, or even any ability. Just by hearing, anybody becomes purified in heart. The heart that has been covered over for unlimited amounts of births and unlimited times, whatever birth we were in, that's who we thought we were. Cockroach, alligator, whatever, dog, cat, from this country, from that country, this position, that position, whatever it was, that's who we thought we were. And the news is, that's not who we are. The news is that we get from Śrimad Bhāgavatam is that eternally our position is as a servant of the Lord. And all the other things that we have to do to maintain our body, work, this, family, that, so many other responsibilities that are there, our primary duty and our primary identification and our primary cultivation of our primary identity is to remember we're servants of the Lord. We're eternally a servant of the Lord. And just as, now sometimes we often hear the examples that Srila Prabhupada gives to explain how, he gives this example of the hand. It's a Vedic example. When the fingers are connected to the hand, everything works quite well. But if the fingers get disconnected, if they get caught in a machine and they get disconnected from your hand, and they're squished in a machine over there, they're not ever going to be happy, even if you put them on ice. Even if you do this, even if you try to sew them back onto your finger, those things back onto the tips, they don't work in the same way. They're not happy, they're not connected. They're only happy and functioning properly when they're connected. Similarly, we can make our huge endeavor, or whatever kind of endeavor, we can make our endeavor to be happy in this material world, getting a good job, getting a good education, getting this, getting a nice situation, whatever. But unless it's in relation to the Supreme Lord, unless we remember that basic number one priority, then it's not going to work. It might work externally for some time, but that hole in the heart, the dissatisfaction in the heart from accumulating wealth or money or prestige or this or that, that's always going to be there if you can even see it or feel it. But anyway, that's always going to be there, and it only comes, our correct understanding only comes from when we're connected in a service attitude to the Supreme Lord, which was, again, back to the storyline, Daksha's example for us. That was he's giving us a good example of in this particular storyline of what not to do. But it's an example. We can learn from what not to do, and we can learn from what we should do. When we have, and that's a little life lesson too. When we have difficult circumstances, maybe they seem unjust or whatever, we can learn from that. Maybe if somebody treats us harshly, we can learn from that. What can we learn? How that hurt, and how we don't want to do that to others. Anyway. And all of that understanding comes simply by hearing the Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada would often say, please, 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 please just hear. Please hear the Bhagavatam. It's so important. Hear the transcendental scriptures, not only Śrimad Bhāgavatam, but all of the transcendental literature that Srila Prabhupada has presented before us. Bhagavad Gita, Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all the books of the Acharyas. Hear this transcendental knowledge because it's who we are. Okay, there's another sentence or two in this purport. I think I should read it. I'm just going to go back out. Lord Shiva's position is described in Brahma Samhita. There's no difference between Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva in their original positions. But still, Lord Shiva is different from Lord Vishnu. Thank you for reminding me to read that. Because here, in that verse of Lord Brahma that he was describing, Krishna is compared to milk and yogurt, and Lord Shiva is compared to yogurt. So in case there's one person in here that doesn't know what yogurt's made out of, it's made from milk. Yogurt is nothing but milk, but with a little extra acids and thingamabobbers in it that makes it solidify a little bit, and it has a different taste, it has a different flavor, and it has different uses, and it has different effects on the body too. Yogurt, would you like some cold yogurt lassi for breakfast today? It wouldn't be recommended because yogurt cools the body down, but hot milk or things with hot milk in it will warm the body up. It has different uses. So they're made of the same ingredients, but you can't use them in the same way. You heat up your yogurt and you're going to get curdled yogurt. You heat up your milk and you're going to get nice, refreshing, warm milk after it's offered to Radha Govinda. But so Lord Shiva's position, so we can remember that because we hear, sometimes we hear explanations of Lord Shiva that are a little hard to understand. But Lord Shiva he's not Vishnu, 100% Vishnu, but he's not an ordinary jiva either. He's in his own category of tattva, truth. He has his own category, Shiva tattva. He's not 100% Vishnu, but he's fully Vishnu, realizing that he's a servant of Vishnu. And he has a service to do to Lord Vishnu, for Lord Vishnu, and in being in charge of the cosmic manifestation, which he does so nicely. And he takes help from Durga, Mother Parvati, and therefore he's described in this verse, Lord Brahma described him as both the father and the mother, and in charge of the whole cosmic manifestation, including and especially the destruction of the cosmic manifestation. That's Lord Shiva in this form of doing his Tandava Nitra dance, his dance of destruction. So, in that Brahma Samhita purport by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, which is one of those wonderful purports by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj that I need a dictionary while I'm reading it, because the words are so elevated and profound. But anyway, the gist, one of the points that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj makes there is that Lord Shiva is serving Lord Vishnu in his position as he's Lord Vishnu, and so in our example of milk and yogurt, yogurt is milk, but it has acids added to it. So Lord Shiva is Lord Vishnu with the added mood of servitude toward Lord Vishnu, and that makes him, in one sense, it makes him a little different, because he has a different mood than Lord Vishnu. He has a mood of service, and therefore his service is to facilitate the living entities who have unfortunately turned their back on the Lord and thought that, oh, if I could just become the center of things, I'd be much happier than if I had to do everything for Krishna. Ew. Let me be the center. And so since there's no accommodation for that in the spiritual world, so Krishna says, oh, well, I'll accommodate, well, I don't mean you, but anyway, I'll accommodate that desire. I'll accommodate the desire, but you can't stay here. You can't stay here. You have to go to the material world, and there you can go with all your other friends, all other conditioned souls who have turned their back on the Supreme Lord, and you can try to be the center and see how's that working for you. That's one thing Vaisheshika, he would say. How's that working for you, little Jiva? It's not working so nice when you think about it, when you analyze it in a little bit of a detached mood. But that's Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva's service to Lord Vishnu is to accommodate the forgetful living entities who are thinking that they can be happy separate from Krishna. And here we are, trying for that over and over and over and over again, in different situations, in different, whatever. And here we are, trying. And he's made that trap, you could say. The material world's a trap, it's entangling. Srila Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion. So Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion is a summary study of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Okay? So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is what? A summary of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, or the conversation that Lord Chaitanya had with Srila Rupa Goswami, teaching him about the principles of Bhakti Yoga. So Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna Govinda himself, speaking to Rupa Goswami, who's totally able to comprehend everything, just on hearing it once. And not only can he comprehend it, but then he can explain it for others who are less quick. He can explain it for others to get the points. Srila Prabhupada read that and made a commentary, Nectar of Devotion, which is a summary study. Okay, so first chapter, qualities of pure devotional service. The six characteristics of pure devotional service. In the first chapter, Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada, and the six characteristics of pure devotional service. Pure devotional service gives one immediate relief from all material distress. In that subheading of the first chapter, Prabhupada describes the evolution, or how the living entity gets from a point of knowledge that he's the servant of the Lord in the spiritual world, comes to the material world and is forgetful. So how does that happen? And how does he become entangled? So there's an explanation there, how the living entity becomes entangled. First, it starts with avidya. He becomes entangled because of ignorance, because we've forgotten our connection with the Lord. So ignorance, starting from a point of ignorance. Then from ignorance comes sinful desire, because the living entity in any state of condition has desire. Never is the living entity desireless. It's not possible. Okay, so the living entity has desire. A living entity in ignorance has a desire that's based on ignorance. That's a sinful desire. And then from a desire means eventually an act, because the desires are our impetus for our actions. So that sinful act is there. So then comes an action, a sinful action. And then from that action, there's a karmic reaction. And most people think it ends there. But it doesn't end there, because there's two reactions to that sinful act. There's the karma, the reaction, the physical or mental suffering from having done it. But there's a subtle reaction also, kutta, an inclination to do it again. Now how's that for an entrapment? I just did some sinful activity because of an ignorant desire based on whatever, based on my personal happiness. I did it. I'm going to get the reaction for doing it, but I'm also the physical or mental suffering from doing it, but I'm also going to get the inclination to do it again, which means what? Further entanglement. It's a dead-end street over here. Not even a dead-end street. It's like a dumpster. You know what I mean? It's a trap. The material world's a trap. We get trapped by our desires. And how? So funny how I wasn't planning on saying this, but anyway, here I am in the middle of it. So anyway, okay. So we're trapped there. So Lord Brahma and Krishna facilitate, or even like Parikshit Maharaj. Oh, anyway. Transcendental knowledge facilitates us trying to understand our position and gradually figure out through the scriptural basis how to get out. So for those who are more purified, you could say, or more fortunate or whatever, and take to the process of devotional service, their key or their exit plan is quite direct and, relatively speaking, quick. But for those who aren't at the point just yet of taking to devotional service, there are other means that are given to the living entity to facilitate. There's the injunctions of the Vedas. Oh, if you want to have a good family, worship this demigod. If you want to have learning, worship Mother Saraswati. If you want to have wealth, worship the Kubera. All of these karma kanda activities are recommended, and they have value. They gradually bring the living entity to higher and higher levels of knowledge. But that gradual process is fraught with difficulties also, because hanging around in a dangerous place means there's more opportunity to make more mistakes and get more entangled. So even there's the Krishna book story, King Vriga, the story of King Vriga, who was the lizard in the well, and then when Krishna touched him, he came out, and he said, perhaps you remember me, I was King Vriga, I gave lots of, in charity, I had a very exalted position, I was following all the rules and regulations, and I did everything, quote unquote, perfectly. It's just one of those cows went into the wrong herd, and then there was a discussion, a discrepancy, and therefore I had to become a lizard. There's danger on that path. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Danger on the path of karma kanda. It's a slow process. There's danger on the path. Then there's jnana kanda, and then is this matter? Is this spirit neti? No, it's not this. It's not that. There's danger on that, because what's the danger there? One might think if and when one is able to make process on that path, then a true practitioner can see the position of the jiva in their heart, the soul in their heart, their spiritual identity. They see the Paramatma in their heart. And they mistake themselves. I am that Paramatma. I am God. That's the danger there on that path. So anyway, there's different dangers all along. But Lord Shiva's position is to direct the living entities according to the desires to, and for those who don't even bother to try to find out their spiritual position or their value of life or their purpose of life or who they really are, then he has wonderful methods of forest fires and droughts and floods and hurricanes and loss of jobs and unstable economic situations and unstable political situations and whatever to make life a little difficult, and to try to show the living entity that this isn't our place. We want eternal happiness, but we're never going to get it here. So, one last sentence in the purport. The example is given that the milk in yogurt is non-different from the original milk from which it is made. So then again, talking about Lord Shiva's position as he's Vishnu with an added mood of a servant of Vishnu. Therefore, because he takes on that servant mood, then he's different than Vishnu. He has a different nuance to his personality. And that was, again, going back to the theme and the storyline, that was Daksha's mistake. He couldn't see Lord Shiva in his position. Because he was so self-absorbed in his own position, he was thinking, I've just been insulted by this person who hasn't offered me respects. Didn't even stand up. He didn't even verbally say anything. He didn't do anything. Unfortunately, another part of the equation was, unfortunately, Lord Daksha didn't realize that why Lord Shiva didn't give him respects by standing up or offering things, because he was totally absorbed in meditation on Krishna, a much higher position than the teeny living entity. So, if you ever get the opportunity to see the stars in the sky, it really helps bring about a little glimpse of how minute we are. There's so many planets and stars and situations in this one teeny bubble of a cosmic universe, of this universe. We have no clue the length and breadth of the universe, unless you read the Bhāgavatam. But you have no clue of that. But just by looking at the stars in the skies, if it does not invoke a little sense of, I'm very tiny, I'm just a small little fragment, I think you need to look at the stars a little longer, because it should invoke that in you, so that we realize. So that was Daksha being, or myself following in the footsteps of Daksha, has such a falsely inflated conception of self, because I'm seeing everything out through my eyes externally, all surrounding me. But no, if I remember, no, I'm just a servant of the Lord, a small little fragmental servant of the Lord. My position is to render, and it's not even that we have to render tremendous service to the Lord. Just make our endeavor to serve the Lord. Some of you are endowed with great qualities and capacities, and so use all of that talent in Krishna service. And some of us don't have those, but we can do little things. We can make garlands, we can do this, we can think of colors, we can organize things, whatever. Take that ability, that strength, that talent, and utilize it in Krishna service. There's no bar. There's no bar that first get your PhD in Bhagavatam studies, and then you can join the temple. No. Just come. Just come and hear. Take that bath. Take the bath, the daily bath, in hearing the Bhagavatam, hearing from the pure devotees, hearing from the scriptures, and the opportunity to render service to the Lord and his devotees, and take advantage of the tremendous gifts that we've been given. So I don't Any discussions or comments or corrections or? Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the lecture. You said that Lord Shiva is in mood of service to Lord Vishnu. And what's the difference of the mood with Lord Balaram?
The service is different. The Lord Shiva's in the mood of servant to the Lord, and his service that has been given by the Lord is to manage the whole cosmic manifestation. Okay? And Lord Balaram has the mood of service also, and therefore he's the bedstead, he's the this, he facilitates the pastime. That's what I have to say. Tulsi, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think Mataji, you said it very nicely. Just Shiva, he's in charge kind of for the material world, what's happening there. Lord Balaram, he's assisting also Krishna, but in the spiritual world.
Yeah, that's what comes to my mind. Would you like to add anything to that? Here.
Lord Shiva is in charge for mode of ignorance, and he takes care of all the living entities to bring them closer to Krishna. He shows a lot of compassion by giving them the shelter, like all the ghosts, all the living entities who doesn't have any body, they get shelter of Lord Shiva. So this is one of the greatest compassionate service of Lord Shiva. And then he's Dham Rakshak also. He does the service of protecting the dhams. Dham Rakshak.
Yeah.
There are many more services actually Lord Shiva does. He carries the he carries the light of Lord Vishnu and impregnates Mother Parvati in a way, and impregnating all the living entities.
Yes.
Through Lord Shiva. So he does a lot of services for.
It does. Yes. Thank you. Hari. Other comments or questions? Corrections? Yes.
Thank you, Mataji. I have a question, personal to you, from your experience from so many years. What do you think is something that you miss from the beginning years of ISKCON nowadays? And also, do you see some advantages of the modern Hare Krishna movement?
Hare Krishna. Well, I guess you could say the obvious no-brainer thing that I miss is, although Prabhupada says Vaku and Vani are the same, we still miss the personal presence of Srila Prabhupada. That was such a gift. It was such a gift that Srila Prabhupada's presence, and I'm sure you're probably so familiar with so many different pastimes and activities and just little small interactions that Srila Prabhupada had. But whenever there was a difficulty or a question or a controversy, which there were plenty, in case you thought there weren't, there were plenty of them, we would go to, they, not me, but they would go to Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada would say, do it like this. And it was all over. And the controversy was over, and we would make our attempt to do it like Prabhupada said. So that, and yes, Srila Prabhupada's still present. We're not denying that he's not still present here in his books, and we get to associate with him every day and as much as possible. But that is like to have, who can understand how I or any of us got that opportunity to associate with a personality, such an exalted personality as Srila Prabhupada, but somehow or other, that is like an opportunity that has changed our lives, the whole course of our eternal sojourn forever and ever. And also for you also, so don't think that you missed out or your opportunity is any less. It's there. It's there. You just have to, take advantage of it more and more through the facility and the ways and means that we have to get his association. But it was quite practically, in a sense, indescribable, to have that, that absolute, and even how did we even have that absolute faith in Srila Prabhupada? But he just facilitated our absolute faith in Srila Prabhupada, so that just by, and you've probably heard many remembrances of Prabhupada, of people who had a question for Prabhupada or had some disturbance in their mind. They went into Prabhupada's room and they couldn't remember the disturbance. They didn't feel disturbed anymore. They couldn't remember what the controversy, it just was like, so, do you have any questions? No. It was an amazing experience to have that. So, the modern Hare Krishna movement, what was the last part? The second half of the question. How?
Like, do you see some advantages from what you're seeing happening now?
The biggest advantage I see is that you're here. And many other people like you. You know what I mean? It's so wonderful to see. It's so wonderful to see. People still coming, still attracted, still enthusiastic to push on Krishna consciousness, maybe a little different way than what we did because there's more facility, etc., etc. But that's the most amazing thing. That's all I'm saying on that one. Anything else? So sometimes you think that, I'd like to thank you guys for listening so attentively, because sometimes you think the speaker is the most important part of the Bhagavatam, but actually it's the listeners the most important part. So thank you for listening. I hope you got something from Srila Prabhupada there. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
You made a really nice, logical flow there that I hadn't heard, but it makes perfect sense about